It's 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, and you're listening to FM 88.3 WHCM Harper College Radio. Brian Shelton here with you. It is time for Harper Talks, and my guest today, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Well, Associate Professor of Art, Karen Patterson. How are things going today for you? Pretty good?
Good. I'm done with my classes, so, it's good.
It's good. So tell us, Karen, what it is that you teach here at Harper College.
I teach art history. Would you like to know the classes?
Yeah,
that I
I
teach?
would, yeah.
Okay. So I teach every semester. I teach ancient and medieval art history, and I teach a non-Western art history.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a few sections of what we call Introduction to Visual Art, but is essentially an art appreciation class that is mostly for non-art majors, and it fulfills a graduation requirement. So we have a lot of students who take that class. We have a lot of sections of that across campus.
Does that sort of like go, this is art and you should appreciate it, or how does that work?
So it's kind of about visual literacy, learning how to talk about art and how to look at art, and giving them some analysis skills. And then there's a little bit where, we kind of explore the different media that artists use, very sort of surface level. And then very, very brief, like greatest hits of all time art history in like 1/4 of the semester, which is really hard.
Yeah, I teach a film history class now, but I used to teach a film appreciation class, and it sounds like that was some kind of a combination of what you're doing with art there.
It's probably very similar.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So how exactly, I think I asked you before we got started, you started as a photography major and went to school at University of Illinois?
That is correct. Yeah.
And then where'd you go from there?
Well, actually, when I was at U of I ended up being a double major.
Okay.
So I became a photography major, and I was working towards my BFA, and you had to take a certain number of art history classes in order to graduate. And in the course of taking those art history classes, I had one class with a professor that I really, really loved. It was American art since 1940, and this professor had written the textbook that we were using, and he was very smart, and the art was all really interesting. And so I took that class, and I told my parents, I'm like, I think I found out what I'm supposed to do, and I think I want to be a double major, and I was a senior. So they were kind of like, but because there's so much overlap, all of my photography classes could be electives for art history, and all my art history were electives for photography. So I stayed for another year, and then I finished, and then I went to graduate school at the University of California in Riverside, and I got my master's degree there. And my specialty was the history of photography, so it actually made a lot of sense.
Okay. So what was graduate school like? Was that fun?
Yeah.
It wasn't fun for me. So
undergrad was a lot more fun.
Undergrad was a lot more fun.
It was different. It was different environment, much smaller classes, different kinds of classes, lots and lots of reading, right? Lots of reading.
I think our students at Harper don't really know what graduate school is all about. And I don't think anybody knows what graduate school is all about until you go there, right? And then you get there and they're like, oh, you need to read 500 pages by next week, right?
And then you need to summarize it all in 3 pages.
Yeah, and then memorize it all, because 2 years from now we're going to give you a test over it, right? Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand how that works. I had a student one time ask me, he said, how do you know all this stuff? And I said, well, I studied. So, yeah.
Right. I went to school for a long time.
I went to school for a long time, yeah. So,
and then you learn it even better when you teach it.
That's right.
when you really have to know it.
It makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So was that a hard sell, telling your parents you're going to be an art history major?
It wasn't too bad. It was a little bit harder telling them I wanted to go to grad school for art history.
Okay.
So they're like, what are you going to do with that? So I was like, well, I could be a curator. I could teach at a community college. I really had to tell them, I'm getting a fellowship. You don't have to pay for this. Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what it really,
Yeah, I remember that too, telling my folks that I was going to get after I had changed my major from environmental and hazardous materials management to communication, and then I was going to go to graduate school for that as well. When I told them that it was a full ride scholarship, they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead,
right,
whatever, As long as we don't have to feed you for the next 2 years, that's
right,
fine with us."
Exactly.
So, graduate school, quite fun. So, graduate school in California, fun, not what you expected. What was it like?
Well, I guess it's different in Riverside rather than other parts of California. California is huge,
right.
First of all. So Northern California is totally different than Southern California, totally different from Central California. And I think I just picked the wrong part of California, to be honest with you. Like, it was 60 miles east of LA, so lots of traffic, very congested, but not a lot of the cultural things that you would find in LA. So if you wanted to go to the art museum, you're going to sit in traffic for 90 minutes to an hour, to go to the museum and then spend the same amount of time going back. And so I actually did not take advantage of LA the way that I wish that I had.
Right.
There are a lot of places there that I only went to once or that I didn't make it to at all. And I kind of wish I could do that differently. But it's very hard when you have all that schoolwork, all that reading to do, to be able to justify sitting in a car for so long.
Yes.
Also, we were an inland empire, and it was very smoggy there. So the foothills were like all around us, and all the smog from LA would go over, and then all the rain would dump on us. Well, it didn't rain very much, but when it did, it was like liquid dirt coming from the sky. Like, my car would be parked outside, and I'd have to wash it after it rained. Not like here where you're like, I don't have to wash my car because it just rained.
It just rained, yeah. So if I'm thinking about going to California, Riverside is not someplace I should be spending my time, is what you're saying.
I'm sure some people like it.
That's very nice of you, yeah. So how did you get from UC Riverside to the lovely Harper College? How'd that happen?
Long story or short story?
Long story. This
Long
is radio.
story.
We've got time.
Yeah, we do have time. So I actually grew up in Plainfield, Illinois, which is south of Chicago.
Okay.
Far south suburbs. And so guess what? After grad school, I didn't have a job.
Right, of course, yeah.
So I came home and I lived with my parents. And I got my first teaching job as an adjunct at Joliet Junior College. They called me about 3 weeks before the summer school class was about to start. So I worked really, really hard, to get the class going. And then they asked me back I had a semester off, and then they asked me back to teach a different class. And gradually over time, I started to supplement by teaching at other places. So I taught at Waubonsie Community College and Harrington College, which is in the city. It no longer exists, really.
One of those for-profit schools?
Yeah. And so
that didn't profit.
No, they did not. They closed their doors. And there was a job at Harper. I probably shouldn't say this on the radio, but I actually applied at Harper and interviewed twice, 2 different job openings. I didn't get the first one.
It happens.
But the second time was a charm. So yeah, here I am.
And here you are. And so you came to Harper in 2008? Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Fall 2008.
Okay. And so it is 2017. We're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Harper College this year. And one of the things we've been asking folks who come on the show is if they could tell us about some of their Harper memories and how things have changed here at Harper College since you started. What's the major difference in the campus today? Not just in construction, but environment, I guess. What do you think?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
You mean like climate?
Yeah, what's it like here now? How was it different? Greg Harridge was with us a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about having Kurt Vonnegut on campus and hanging out with him. And
yeah,
I don't think we have him here anymore.
No.
So things are a little bit different. But
yeah, when I first started, we had a different president, a different campus president, but he was almost done. So I just was at the tail end of his tenure here, and then we had a period without. We had an interim president, and then Dr. Ender came on. And so it's hard for me to compare the differences because I wasn't here very long under the first president. The students don't, I think Greg Hare just said this too, the students don't really change that much. And this is the same thing that he said. I keep getting older, right? So when I started teaching, I was only a few years older than they were, especially when I started at Joliet Junior College. And now I very clearly feel a generation gap. I will sometimes refer to things that I think is common knowledge, and it's not common knowledge anymore.
Yeah. Don't make a Seinfeld reference, whatever you do. You'll never feel so old as to make a Seinfeld reference in a class. So.
Well, sometimes being that, my specialty is the history of photography, I will reference film or negatives, and I don't think a lot of them know what that is anymore.
Yeah.
So
I pull out in a film history class, I'll pull out some actual
Which is a
celluloid
good
film,
idea.
and they look
Yeah.
at me like, "Wow, what is that? What is
Right.
this ancient thing that you have that you have concocted?" Or I'll pass around. I have some tintypes and some
Oh, so do
some
I.
ambrotypes, and I'll pass those
Do
around.
you? Can I borrow an ambrotype?
Yeah, absolutely.
I pass out tintypes.
Do you have a daguerreotype?
I do.
Oh, can I borrow the
Yes, you
daguerreotype?
can. I
Sorry,
also have
everybody.
a
Yeah.
stereo viewer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, they're really neat things to pass around because I think you talk about these things in the abstract with students and they have no idea what you're talking about, right? And so you can actually show them something physical and they
That's
walk away with a better idea.
Yeah,
so,
that's kind of nice.
Yeah. So I've got a copy of Point of View here.
Yes, you do.
Which is the college art and literary magazine, and you are one of the faculty advisors along with Jessica Walsh from the English department. Tell us all about Point of View. What is Point of View? Obviously, our listeners can't see it,
right?
So, because this is radio, not television. But
well, Point of View is the art and literary magazine at Harper College. So, you should hopefully find them all over campus very soon. We just got our latest issue, and all the boxes are not yet distributed around campus, but you can find them here and there right now. So students will submit works of creative writing, like poetry mostly, but also short stories. And students will also submit artwork in various media. And the jury, at least for, I think in both cases, the jury is a student jury.
Okay.
So it's the students that select the best artwork and the best works of creative writing to get published. And it's student run. So me and Jessica don't actually really run it. But we have a design editor who's a student, and then we have a literary editor who's a student, and we sort of coach them through the process, but they actually create the magazine themselves.
Okay.
And it's something that I'm really proud of. It always looks really good.
It does, yeah. I was always really impressed. When I first started working here 3 years ago, I was like, wow, that's nice. That's
yeah.
So how long have you been the advisor?
So this has we just finished our 6th issue.
Okay.
And of course, it has a much longer history. So it used to be Anne Davidovich from the English faculty, and then she wanted someone to help her with it. So that's when it became a 2-person, co-advisor position. And so she sort of showed me the ropes, and once I kind of figured out what I was doing, she kind of stepped aside, and Jessica Walsh came on board.
Okay.
So
the artwork in here is amazing. I haven't had a chance to read any of the literary pieces yet, but the artwork is pretty amazing. And I recognize some of the pieces from the student works that are shown in the gallery here on campus during the student exhibition. Can you talk to me about, and now I know so as an art historian, right, how do you look at our students' work? Where do, I don't want you to judge them as as you'd be judging the Mona Lisa, right? But I mean, how do our students do? How do they stack up?
Some of the work that some of our instructors get our students to produce is really, really good.
Yeah.
For example, he's probably not listening. Jason Piatt's class, when he teaches his, especially sculpture class, his students create really, really interesting pieces that are, he has them dialogue with a contemporary artist. So they're taking like some inspiration, but then they're making it their own. And they're always really interesting formally, and they're kind of exciting, right? And they're usually like really ambitious.
Yeah.
And we have also a life drawing class, which is taught by Dro Ronick. And that's where a model comes in, and a model poses, and they draw from the figure. And the students that are in that class, they just produce this amazing work. Like the level of technical proficiency is really, really high.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's, not to put you too much on the spot, but what's the most impressive piece you've seen in your time here? Is there one that really stands out that you remember, a student work?
Oh, there are a lot of them that were really good. The one that I'm thinking of right now, and it doesn't mean that it's the best one, but the one that I'm thinking of right now is one that was created by a student named Olivia Zubko. And there was a painting, and I think it was a found painting that she had added her own painting to it. And then there was like this sculptural construction attached to the painting that led down to a garbage can. And the words on it, which linked to the painting in the garbage can, was like, I don't know what did it say? Something to the effect of, I don't know good art, but I know what I like, or something like that. And Dr. Ender purchased that one. Every year he purchases a piece from the student show to put, I think it's in his office for a year. And so he picked that one because he doesn't know much about art, but he knows what he likes. That's what it was. I kind of feel the same way. I studied film, but
sometimes, I'll pop into the Art Institute in Chicago, the Museum of the Art Institute in Chicago, and I'll look at something and, and you say, man, I really like that. I don't know why I like that, but I do. So as an art history teacher, give me a lesson. How do I know what I like?
Well, that is especially what I try to get out of the art appreciation kids.
Right.
Right. Is to be able to explain, why they feel a particular way, or what is the work of art doing that, or how are they receiving it that makes them, respond in that particular way. So, I mean, there's lots of different entry points into it, but one sort of really basic way is to just analyze the simple things like the line and the shape and the texture and the color, and kind of really scrutinize, okay, well, there are all of these curvilinear lines. So, what feeling does that sort of create for the viewer, as opposed to if all these lines were really straight and rigid and grid-like. And we really try to parse that out. And that's one sort of entryway into the work. We also talk a little bit about iconographic analysis, kind of using subject matter and symbolism to decode the artwork. And it's trying to get them to think beyond the obvious, right? But sometimes, they could tell me what's in the picture, assuming it's a picture.
Right.
And then, are there any symbolic objects? But then if you put all those kind of symbols together, what is sort of the further idea behind it? And that third step is sometimes the hardest step.
Yeah. Sometimes you look at a piece and you don't necessarily have the words to explain why it is that it speaks to you, but a piece can really speak to you. And then sometimes you look at art and you're like, what the hell is that? Right. Like,
well, sometimes the artist demands a lot from the viewer.
That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
But that's sometimes the most interesting.
Yeah, sometimes I feel that way about modern art. You go someplace and you'll see, especially video art. That's a category. Do you look at video art at all?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. I just, as someone who does media production, video production, film production,
well, that's interesting.
The complete lack of aesthetic that's outside of the taught form, the commercial form. When you see that sometimes, for me, it's very hard to look at video art objectively because of that. Because I'm looking at it and saying, why? As someone who teaches how to make like a commercial video production, right? When I see a piece of video art, I look at that and I'm like, that would never fly, right? You could never get away with doing that. But the whole point is that it's art, so you can get away with it, right? Yeah.
And so you're talking about the technical aspects.
Right, yeah.
I sometimes tell my students that with video art, sometimes it sort of is going to test their patience because it's not going to entertain them the way that film or television does. Like, it has a different objective many times.
Yeah.
There's this one video piece by an artist named Bill Viola, and it's just two women kind of embracing each other, and that's it. And it was an action that took like 45 seconds maybe in real life for them to walk in and, and hug each other and then sort of leave. But he stretched it out to 16 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And it's really intense. I sat and I watched the whole thing, which usually I don't do with video art. But I did sit and watch the whole thing. But this is like a really sort of interesting, it makes me think, about attention spans and the kind of media that we expect being really different.
What do you think about interactive art? As someone who teaches art appreciation, there are lots of places now where you can go in and actually touch what's there and be involved with the art that's there. How do you?
You know what? I want to tell you about my favorite work of interactive art, which sometimes students ask me what my favorite artist is, and I say, well, I like it all, of course. I can't pick just one. But I do have artists that I'm more interested in at one particular moment. And right now I'm really interested in this artist named Wafa Bilal. And he's an Iraqi-American artist, and he grew up under Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and then he was a refugee and ultimately found his way to the United States. But he has this experience kind of growing up in a war zone, and his brother was actually killed by a bomb, I think it was. And so he was thinking about, what it's like to live in a war zone. And he was also thinking about, like, what is warfare like now with drones, and you can be so detached from the act of violence. You could be, like, somewhere else completely, right? And it's like a video game. So what his piece was that I'm so interested in actually took place in Chicago. I think it was 2007. And it was in a gallery called the Flat File Galleries. And he lived in this gallery space for a month. And he had a paint gun that was connected to a computer and a webcam, and it was interactive so that people all over the world could log onto this website and they could take control of the gun, and they could aim it wherever they wanted, and then they could shoot a paint gun. And so I actually read, he wrote a whole book. It's like a memoir. He wrote a whole book about it. And I mean, at first I'm like, wow, this is a great metaphor, you know, on so many levels. And it also is about racism, and it's about being detached from the violence they're enacting and all this stuff. But then as I read it, you know, it would be 2 a.m. and people would be shooting off these paint guns, and it would make a really loud noise like a machine gun. So he couldn't sleep. He was being shot at while he ate, and he was like literally having PTSD from this. Lost a ton of weight.
That's crazy.
But he was determined to see it out.
Yeah. So how long did he do it?
A month.
A month. Oh, my goodness.
At one point, hackers got in there, and they turned it into a machine paint gun. So it just went and used up all of his paintballs, and he had to scramble to get more.
I assume there's probably video of this online somewhere that we can look at.
You can go on YouTube, and you can see he would do these video diaries, I guess you would call them, on a daily basis, kind of. And there was always a chat running. Right, so people were always communicating. He was always communicating with people by chat, but then he would always every day sort of make a video of himself and post it on YouTube. And I'm sure you can find all 30 days on YouTube if you're interested.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
You're listening to Harper Talks on FM 88.3 WHCM. I'm Brian Shelton, and my guest today is Karen Patterson, who's an associate professor of art, and she teaches art history and art appreciation here at Harper College. And we're talking about all things art history and and your life and career here at Harper College. I'm curious. I don't know how to put this. This is me asking a bad question. Do you still enjoy art?
Of course.
Like, I mean, do you still like? Oh man, it's Saturday. Let's go to an art museum, or
well, I have a child. I have a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
She doesn't really do art museums.
Yes, that's my problem too. I have a little girl. She's going to be 7, and so basically, I've been to the Art Institute like twice in the last 6 years. So yeah.
I did go recently to the Museum of Contemporary Art. Got a babysitter. And Sunday, there's actually going to be an art opening for one of our adjunct faculty here named Diana Gabriel. And it's going to be in Morris, and it's going to be on a farm.
Oh, wow.
She's doing a specific piece there, and it said kids are welcome. So I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to go. Yeah. But yeah, I do not go as much as I used to or as much as I want to.
Okay.
But I would if I could.
If there's... Now, obviously, there are local galleries and regional galleries and that sort of thing. But if there was one gallery that you could go, that you could say everyone should go to that you've been to, is there a place or a museum? I should say.
A museum.
Yeah.
I would say people should go to the Museum of Modern Art in New York City.
Okay.
That's got so many of the really important pieces from the 20th century. Like you walk into the Museum of Modern Art and you're like, I know that piece. That piece is really famous. I can't believe that's here. I didn't know that was here. Oh my God, I didn't know that Salvador Dali painting was so small.
Right.
So
I haven't been to that. I need to hit that one up this year. I'll be in New York in March, so I will take your recommendation and hit that one up. Yeah. Every time I'm in New York, I'm like, well, there's so much I need to see and so much I need to do, and then you don't get a chance to do it. I really want
to go back to New York.
Yeah.
Such a mecca for art.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're so fortunate to have what we have in the Chicago area, but it's, I don't know, you get spoiled, right? You're like, oh, yeah, the Art Institute, whatever. Yeah. And then you leave and you go someplace else. So,
yeah, it is at the point where I'll go to the Art Institute to see the special exhibit. And the last thing I want to do is look at the Impressionist paintings one more time.
I always have to stop by and look at Pollock, though, the chaos in the Pollock paintings. And I know it's easy to like Pollock, but the chaos in the Pollock paintings, just for some reason, and again, this is me not having the words to talk about it, but they just really speak to me. And I can just stand there and stare at a Pollock for quite a long time, and get kicked out of the museum.
Not get kicked out of the museum.
Well, every once in a while you think about touching it.
No, you don't touch it. Did you hear about the kid who put a piece of gum on a Helen Frankenthaler painting?
Oh my goodness, what happened there?
Well, he got kicked out, and then the conservators had to come in and clean all this gum off.
Oh my goodness.
But I think it was okay in the end.
There was a woman last year before fell into a painting at a museum. I can't remember where it was and ripped a giant hole in it. And I'm like, oh man, But you do that though, don't you do that as someone who loves the art? Don't you try to get as close to it as you possibly can? So
the buzzer will go off.
Yeah,
but I don't want to be publicly shamed.
But I love it. I love in a painting like that, getting up and seeing the brush strokes. And I know that's
Yeah, sometimes you do want to touch that texture.
Yeah. A friend of mine says that they should have a petting zoo for art.
They do. It's the Children's Touch Gallery.
Yeah, but they
basement.
need to have it for adults, Right. Yeah.
Well, listen, there's a artist named Carl Andre, and he does these floor pieces, and you can walk on them. You're supposed to walk on them.
Oh, cool.
And there's an artist who does a piece where it's a stack of candy. This is at the Art Institute in the Modern Wing. Felix Gonzalez-Torres, and it's a stack of cellophane-wrapped candy. And if you read the object label, you're supposed to take one and eat it.
Oh, wow.
So I will go there and I will take one and I will eat it. And all the museum visitors will look at you in horror.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like, what is this lady doing?
And I'm like, no, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Read the label.
Read the label, yeah. The Museum of Art in, is it the Milwaukee Museum of Art or the Art Museum of Milwaukee? I can't forget how the label goes.
Milwaukee Art Museum.
Yeah. I've always really liked that one as a regional art museum because the exhibits seem much more, I don't want to use the word, I guess I do, much more interactive. It's not so much all of the very classical and Baroque paintings, but there's some more installation art. And I personally enjoy the installation art, and they have a lot of that there.
I like installation art a lot, too. Yeah. And that's such a beautiful building. Have you watched it open and close?
I have. Yeah, it's the Calatrava building.
Yeah.
It's
great.
Of course, the only problem with that architecture, though, is it's been, he's licensed that all over the place now. So like every expansion bridge in the world is like that now. And then the new transportation center in New York City looks just like that as well. Supposed to be like the most expensive, cost overrun public building ever built. Have you seen it?
No.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm rambling on the radio. I'm sorry. So what's coming up next for you? Anything exciting?
Well, we're working on our next issue of Point of View because we're going through that process again. So I'm looking for a design editor. So if there's any students listening right now and you have some graphic design skills and in design, you can look me up, Karen Patterson, shoot me an email. So like in the next month or so, I'm going to be trying to identify who that person is.
Okay. And anything exciting? Are you teaching anything new by chance, or is it? I don't want to say the same old, but is it the same old, same old?
It's never the same old, same.
Okay, all right.
No, I mean it's the same courses, but I'll mix it up a little bit.
Okay.
Change out examples.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds fun. Well, thanks so much for being on our show today.
Has it been a half an hour?
Yeah, it has been. It went by just like that. And you said it wouldn't. She said to me earlier, I'm going to be the worst guest you've ever had.
I could be. I could have been the worst guest. I'm the worst one I listened to.
I feel the same. I have to go back and listen to these things afterwards and hear my own voice. So, yeah. So we want to thank Karen Patterson for being on the show today. You've been listening to Harper Talks. Make sure that you tune in next week at 2 o'clock. I wish I knew who my guest was going to be, but I've got it listed. But anyway, tune in next week for Harper Talks. This has been Brian Shelton on FM 88.3 WHCM Harper College Radio.